Cord. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Switch to the other.
There you are. Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Today's December 19th, 2021, and we're here at a Bhakti Yoga Enlightenment program at Prabhupada House in Melrose, Florida. And we're studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 14, entitled The Three Modes of Nature, text 6. All right, so we'll start with the Sanskrit words responsibly. Text 6, chapter 14. Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Yana Sangena Shanaga Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Yana Sangena Chanaga Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga
Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat
Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat
Prakashakam Anamayam
Prakashakam Anamayam
Sukha Sangena Badnati
Sukha Sangena Padnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Jnana Sangena Chanaga Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam Anamayam Sukha Sangena Padnati Jnana Sangena Chanaka Tatra Sattvam Nirmalatvat Prakashakam anamayam. Sukha sangena padnati. Jnana sangena chanaga.
Tatra sattvam nirmalavat.
Tatra sattvam nirmalavat.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Sukha sangena padnati.
Sukha sangena padnati.
Sangena chanaga.
Jnana sangena chanaga. Would someone online like to recite?
Tatra savam nirmalavat.
Tatra sattvam nirmalavat.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Sukha sanjena banati.
Sukha sangena padnati.
Jana sanjena chanaga.
Jnana sangena chanaga.
Tatra sattvam nirmalavat.
Tatra sattvam nirmalavat.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Prakashakam anamayam.
Sukha sangena padnati.
Sukha sangena banati.
Jnana sangena chanaga.
Jnana
Sangena chanaga. Tatra. Thereafter. Sattvam. Mode of goodness. Nirmalat bhat. Being purest in the material world. Prakashakam. Illuminating. Anamayam. Without any sinful reaction. Sukha. Happiness. Sangena. Association. Badnati. Conditions. Jnana. Knowledge. Sangena. Association. Cha. Also. Anagha. O sinless one. Translation. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode develop knowledge, but they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The living entities conditioned by material nature are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless. All these types of psychological manifestations are causes of the entity's conditioned status in nature. How they are differently conditioned is explained in this section of Bhagavad Gita. The mode of goodness is first considered. The effect of developing the mode of goodness in the material world is that one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. A man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries, and he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. The representative type is the Brahmin, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. This sense of happiness is due to understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. Actually, in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness. The difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. In this way, he becomes conditioned. The best examples are the scientist and philosopher. Each is very proud of his knowledge, and because they generally improve their living conditions, they feel a sort of material happiness. This sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness and material nature. As such, they are attracted toward working in the mode of goodness, and as long as they have an attraction for working in that way, they have to take some type of body in the modes of nature. Thus, there is no likelihood of liberation or being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one may become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to the illusion of the material energy, one thinks that sort of life is pleasant. Okay, so I'm gonna recite a few more mantras that are found actually at the beginning of the introduction to Bhagavad Gita to continue to invoke auspiciousness. Really, we're invoking the presence and the blessings of pure personalities to support us to create auspiciousness in our gathering here. And for me personally, I'm humbly asking them, these pure personalities, like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, these pure personalities, that whatever I speak represents them authentically. That I'm just not, David Wolf making stuff up. That's not going to help anyone, guaranteed. Hi. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yota Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatanditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Mustra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Tagatate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Sarasvati Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 6. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena padnati jnana sangena chanaga. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode develop knowledge, but they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. If there's many interrelated themes of vital philosophy here. And so as human beings, we're meant to be philosophers. Now Prabhupada, that's Bhaktivedanta Swami, he writes about philosophers in the purport. And the idea is like philosopher, genuine philosophy is not just, oh yeah, like I got this degree, now I can get a job at the university and teach philosophy, and then a few more years I can get tenure, and then I can spend more time at the beach. Nothing wrong with spending time at the beach, but actual philosophy is about like genuine search for truth. Like genuine means like I really want the truth, not like I want to be seen as someone who searches for the truth. It's so romantic. No, I'm just making distinctions here. Okay, like I'm a searcher. Okay? Just like, okay, like let's say if I misplace my car keys, it's like I really want to find them. It's not about like I'm searching for my car keys. Maybe they're here. Maybe they're here. I'm sincere in the search. It's like, okay, well, did you look here? Did you look here? No. Do you really want to find them? So like we're really looking. We're really looking for truth. So philosophy, I guess a little more definition of terms, a little more different. Because okay, so right here is right in the translation. There's a word appearing twice that, you know, it could be regarded as like a very unfashionable word, a politically incorrect word, like sinful. Sinful. Oh, like this is like, what's this, like the 1750s or something? Sinful. Like, no one does sinful anymore. Okay. So just to define things. So just to define things, define terms, so we're clear what we're talking about. So really, it's not about like, you know, you're bad, you're damned to hell. I'm bad, you're good. So it's really about consciousness. It's really about consciousness. So yeah, we're in a sense we're translating the English, you know, to just help us get a deeper understanding of the truth of the actual principles at play here. So it means like, okay, like that which we do or say or think or speak, that which alienates the self from the self for ourselves and others, that's sinful. Okay. So it's all in the context, it's on the foundation that tato brahma jigyasa kamasya nandriya pritir labo jivete yavata jivasya tafa jigyasa nartoyas jaya karmabi, that the highest purpose of the human form of life, to quote Teilhard de Chardin, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Right? Just like outside, they're spiritual beings having a squirrel experience, or a dog, or a cat, or a tree experience, or a blade of grass experience. So we're spiritual beings in a human body. And each species has its special gift in God's creation. And the special opportunity, jivasya tapa jigyasa, of human form of life is to consciously aspire for self-realization and realization of the absolute. Okay, so to self-realization, realizing who we are as not the body, not even the subtle material energy of the mind and intellect, who we are as eternal spiritual beings. Towards the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, it's described. Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovinam jaratata dehantara praptir dirastatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. So someone can say, I don't believe that. I do believe that. It doesn't matter what we believe. This is science. This is science. Okay. These are universal principles.
I don't believe you.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, all right. So Marie doesn't believe it. Okay. So okay. So where is the 5-year-old body of Murray? Show it to me. Where's the teenage body of Murray? Show it to me. So these are all universal principles, including everything in this verse. Okay. We've all experienced science. This is a science of self-realization. 2 pillars of science. 1, a rational hypothesis. 2, a process we can practice, an experiment, to have an experience of the assertions of that hypothesis. And so, okay, so we can all experience, right? Like our bodies are changing. A thought exercise I do a lot, following in the line of Prabhupada, who we can say, okay, let's say imagine we're looking at a photo from when we were 5 years old. So when you look at that photo, do you say, who is this person? Who is this stranger? No, that's David when I was 5. That's me when I was 5. And that's Stephanie when I was 5. Okay. Now we know from basic chemistry, there's not one molecule, not one atom that's in the body now that was there at 5. Well, the body grew. No, wrong. It's not like the molecules got bigger. No, all the parts are completely different. Now, so that indicates, it's like an experiential evidence that the essential self that I call David, you call Leah, you call Nico, the essential self has nothing to do with the physical. The essential self. Okay. So again, we say, yeah, but I'm a Muslim, but I'm white, I'm a woman, I'm a man, but I'm Christian, but I'm an atheist, whatever. We've all experienced body changes in some constant identity. So it's indicate the constant identity is something non-physical. Okay. So it's a science of self-realization. So my stance of Bhagavad Gita, that whatever we speak, whatever we do, whatever actions we take, however we relate with each other, if we're supporting each other to come out of the illusion that I am the temporary material body and to realize who we are as that irreducible quanta of consciousness that animates the body, then that's a worthy, sublime, profound, auspicious use of human life. And whatever we do that alienates the self from the self, that interferes with this process of self-discovery, that's defined here as sin. Okay. So defining terms, philosophy, sin. And so as human beings, we're meant to be philosophers, but meant to, in the true sense, in the true sense. And so in philosophy, like there's this debate, going back generations and millennia. Okay, like there's voluntarism and determinism, right? Voluntarism and determinism. Okay, meaning like, well, actually we have free will. No, everything's deterministic and mechanistic and reductionistic, right? Okay, so I'm bringing, we could study books on this, and great philosophers have written about these things, not just shelves, but whole libraries about like this topic. So this chapter resolves all of that, not simplistically, elegantly. It resolves all of that elegantly, that whole debate of free will and determinism. So, because this chapter is about the three modes of material nature. The mode is called guna. Guna translates as rope. Okay. So, back in the mid-1990s, as part of my PhD program, I developed something called the Vedic Personality Inventory. It's like a personality assessment. And just like the Minnesota multiphasic or the Myers-Briggs, different person, and then they test these statistically. So this was a personality assessment tool. And it's based on this chapter. It's based on this chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's based on the psychology from the ancient Vedas. Bhagavad Gita is like the summary and essence of all the ancient Vedic knowledge. So it's the psychology of the three gunas, the three modes of nature. And then we conducted rigorous social science research to validate the personality inventory, and these statistics essentially strongly confirm these constructs of tamas. Tamas means the mode of inertia. Rajas is the mode of activity, and sattva is the mode of goodness or enlightenment. Okay, so you might say one of my motivations for developing Vedic personality inventory was to establish for the world I'll call it an empirical basis for happiness, or an empirical basis for inner peace, an empirical basis for fulfillment, an empirical basis for for feeling satisfied, fulfilled, for security. And all of the hypotheses are based on this chapter, and then chapters 17 and 18, 14, 17, and 18 Bhagavad Gita go into detail about these three gunas. So what the Bhagavad Gita asserts Again, it's a science of material nature and a science of spiritual nature. So what the Bhagavad Gita asserts is that to the extent, so there's three basic modes, tamas, rajas, sattva. To the extent that we cultivate sattvic habits and sattvic worldviews, that will positively correlate with all those experiences, all those qualities that we're looking for. Fulfillment, peace, security, freedom, happiness, joy, like that. So visiting again the voluntarism, determinism debate. So I said it resolves it elegantly. I just kind of left that there hanging in suspense. How does it do that? Glad you asked. Okay. So the atomic unit of sentience, that is us. The atomic unit, that's us. We have free will. And just to be clear, like, yes, that, you know, there's some concepts that at the core, like if we really peel off the layers and get to the core self, then we'll find nothing. There's many philosophies like that. There's many personal transformation seminars based on that philosophy. Okay, and so that's not Bhagavad Gita. So this is describing that at the core, we're not nothing. At the core, we're the spirit soul. We're the spirit soul. Okay, so many analogies we can use, right? We're not the car. We're the driver of the car. Okay, we're not the finger. We're the owner of the finger. Okay, so the spirit soul, so transformation is a process of uncovering. So the spirit soul in our pure state, this word is used here, purity, it's used here. This is really important, the purity. But actually, to the extent, like I can say from my experience, to the extent that I live purely, I'm happy. To the extent that I'm living a way that, let's use the metaphor of like a diamond, right? Like the diamond, it's metaphorical, that's the spirit soul, right? The driver of the car, the inhabitant of the body. Because then once the spirit soul leaves, right, we're not attracted to the body anymore. Bury it, burn it, feed it to the fish. Right? Because the attractive element, the actual spiritual person's inside. That's the attractive element. Okay, once there's death, then bury it, burn it, like that. So let's like a diamond is always effulgent and radiant and strong and brilliant. But a diamond can be covered. A diamond can be covered by dust. It can be covered by dirt, be covered by thick mud. But the diamond is always pure and strong and effulgent. So similarly, we as that diamond spirit soul, our nature is free and loving and powerful and beautiful and vibrant and radiant and fulfilled and satisfied, self-satisfied. That's our nature. Now, we've allowed the pure diamond to become covered by dust, dirt, maybe in some cases thick mud, and that correlates with like tamas, thick mud, rajas, dirt, sattva covering, thin dust. So to the extent that we are consciousness, this diamond soul, we are conscious and we are consciousness, both, just like a ray of light. It's illuminating and it is light. We are conscious and we are consciousness. So to the extent that we're covered by the modes of nature, especially what's called like the heavier, denser modes, rajas and tamas, then the deterministic, mechanistic, reductionist philosophies, they are valid, they are true. Then essentially we are, to use a term used later in Bhagavad Gita, yantra Rudani Maya, then we're like machines. Then we're like robots. We're like machines. We can think. We're thinking, no, I'm completely free. You know, I can choose this beer or that beer. I can go for the Gators or the Seminoles. I'm like a free person. Excuse me. No offense intended. Okay. So, all right. And to the extent, right. So then it is. Then we're like machines. And Bhagavad Gita says that. Ishvara sarvabhutana videsha arjuna tishtari brahmayan sarvabhutana yantra rudani maya. Yantra means machine. Right. So this whole Bhagavad Gita, it's a process. It's a process for us to disentangle ourselves, to liberate ourselves from machine life. There's no joy in machine life. There's no joy in machine life. Right. So to the extent that we come to the higher modes, sattva, that's why it's like, this is a science of happiness, an empirical basis for happiness. Because it's actually between those chapters I mentioned, chapters 14, 17, and 18, it describes like about 20 categories of life, maybe more. You know, from the food we eat, to the work we do, to how we communicate, to how we don't communicate, to how we manage our money, to how we manage our sexual energy, to how we seek knowledge, right? Because like our nature is to seek knowledge and happiness. So we can seek knowledge and happiness in a tamasic way. We could seek it in a rajasic way, in a sattvic way, or in a purely transcendental way. So we learn this science. It's like knowledge is power. Knowledge or intelligence means the capacity to make distinctions. To the extent that I'm able to make distinctions philosophically and apply those distinctions, applied philosophy. What is sattva? What is tamas? What is rajas? What is even beyond sattva? What is even more pure? That's called devotion, bhakti. Then okay, now I'm equipped, now I'm powerful to live a truly fulfilling life and to inspire others to do so. Okay. So to the extent that we're free from the modes of nature and we're alive to who we are as spiritual beings, we're not under the illusion that I'm the car. This is so important. The root cause of all anxiety is misidentification of the eternal spiritual self with the temporary material body. Okay. Otherwise, we can, as long as I'm misidentifying the eternal spirit self that I am, okay, that's absolute knowledge. Absolute. That could be another term. That's absolute. Everything's relative, man. Don't you know that? There is no absolute. Are you sure? Yeah. You're absolutely sure? That's kind of a trap, isn't it? Yeah. So just like, okay, like I'm David Wolf, I'm 60 years old. No, I'm 61 years old from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay, so that's relative truth. Okay. Because this atomic unit of sentience that inhabits this body called David Wolf. Was I David Wolf 1,000 years ago? Will I be David Wolf 100 trillion years from now?
Even just 40.
Even?
It's just 40 or so.
Yeah, okay. So absolute truth is I'm not this body. I'm eternal spirit soul. I'm a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's absolute truth. Okay, that's good. Absolute means it's good in all time and space. It's true in all time and space. That's absolute. Okay. So that's the special gift of the human form of life, is we get to go for the absolute truth inside. And that's the real, that's an ever increasing, ever deepening blissful experience. Okay. Okay, so then the mechanistic philosophies don't apply to the extent that we're liberated from the modes, because then free will, then the free will is manifest and it's alive and it's vibrant. Okay, so that's what I mean, that this philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, especially this chapter, it elegantly resolves that whole debate, voluntarism, determinism, elegantly resolves it all. Brilliant. And this was, yeah. So back, some of you heard me tell a bit of my history, but back in like late 70s, early 80s, yeah, I wasn't looking for spirituality. I wasn't looking for a pure life. I definitely wasn't looking for God or anything like that. But then, trust me on that one. But I was, yeah, I was gradually reading the books of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Actually, in the summer of 1983, I was backpacking around Europe, and I stopped at an ashram outside of Florence, Italy, called Villa Vrindavan, and I read Bhagavad Gita as it is, cover to cover. Like, they tried to engage me in service. I couldn't, it was like, you know, he's useless, and I didn't speak Italian, so I just read Bhagavad Gita. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so I read Bhagavad Gita for like 2 weeks. Yeah, and then and like I had to sadly admit to myself, this all makes sense. Like, I tried my best to find flaws. That was it was a devastating blow to my whole life plans. And because then I thought, like, this makes sense, and I liked to consider myself an honest person. I'm not saying I was an honest person, but I like to consider myself an honest person. And I thought, wow, because it not just gives like a consistent philosophy, like just far more rational and congruent than anything else I've been exposed to. But it also says, okay, and if you want to realize the truths of this philosophy, then here's a process. Right? Here's an experiment. Go into the laboratory, the experiment of our own heart, our own consciousness. I thought, well, I owe it to myself. So I can say 39 years later, I'm still doing the experiment. And I'm satisfied with the results. So I can say each year, I'm more and more enthusiastic to get myself to this process of self-realization, this process of connection with the divine. So, yeah. So this is encouraging, cultivate the mode of goodness, which is sattva. And in the same verse, it's also giving a warning, both. It's encouraging and warning, both. Cultivate the mode of sattva, and don't make that the ultimate goal. Both are there, okay? Because the idea is, from the mode of sattva, and just like everything is permeated by the modes in our institute, our program, Sattva Tod Institute. We focus on like making distinctions around the aspect of life, communication, right? Communication. So communication it's pervasive, right? Where we work, where we play, where we serve, there's always communication. Even if I'm alone with myself, I'm communicating. We got conversations going on in there. And so Sattvic communication is communication where we're cultivating mastery, that in any relationship, we're cultivating excellence in co-creating sacred space that supports self-realization and that distinguishes reality from illusion for the welfare of all. Okay. Cultivating mastery in that, rather than communication that just further alienates the self from the self. So all Sattvic communication means like I'm capable, I'm clear on who I am and what my experience is and what my perceptions are, and I'm capable to effectively communicate those perceptions so that you get me, and to do it in a way that's truly beneficial. Right? Because like it could be like easy. It could be relatively easy to just like, I'm just not going to have that conversation. And just like, I just want to go along to get along. And then, my goal of life is to not rock the boat. Let's not notice that this boat is like really stuck on a sandbar. This boat's not going anywhere, but at least let's not rock it like that. Okay, and then just because out of fear, like fear driven. It could also be relatively easy to just like, yeah, you want to know what I think? Here's what I think. In your face. Here's the truth. Just deal with the truth. That could be relatively easy. At the same time, to have the courage to share the truth, in a way where I'm going deep inside myself and I'm truly coming from a caring place for the highest good, of everyone involved, me, you, and everyone involved. And that's where my consciousness is coming from. And you get that I care enough about our relationship to be honest. I'm sharing my honest perceptions in a way where you get my caring heart too. That's sattvic. And that requires, at least for me, that requires austerity. And so, yeah. So austerity means like, again, this is another word, like maybe not one of the most popular words. Let's discipline ourselves and do austerity. Yeah, party. So austerity, that's not. But so this, I'm going to say this is Maharaj Rishabhadev. He was a great king a long time ago. So he was talking to his sons and he says, Neham nayam dehu deham bhajanri loke kastan kaman arti vid bhujamya. Tapu divyam pujakim sevam shigedyasman pramasakyam tvanantam. So what he's saying there is he's saying to his sons, don't settle for the type of happiness that's available. He uses the term vidbhujame, that's available to the stool eaters, pigs, dogs, like that. Don't settle for the type of happiness that's available to other species, which is basically eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Sure, in the human form, we might engage in those activities in glorified forms. Okay, like I eat at a fancy restaurant where the pig eats the slop. But it's the same central activity. And the Bhagavad Gita doesn't suggest to neglect our eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Take care of the car, but not make taking care of the car the goal. So Rishabhadev is saying like, tapo divyam, voluntarily engage in divine austerities. And I think we can say we all have experience. When we actually have victory over our own senses and mind, that's where the joy is. When we actually are able to discipline ourselves and have victory over our own senses and mind. That like maybe if we defeat someone else in an argument or a tennis match or something like I'm better than someone else, then like we're satisfied. But there's no joy there. Joy is when we actually have victory over our own senses and mind. Okay? And this Bhagavad Gita gives a process for that, practical process. That's where the joy is. So Rishabhadev is saying, go for that ever increasing spiritual joy that is not dependent on anything externally. Ramate Buddha. That says that an actual wise person does not seek the fulfillment and peace and joy in the contact of the senses with the sense objects. Why? Because such pleasures, and there might be pleasure there, but such pleasures have a beginning and an end. And we're eternal beings. We're only going to be fulfilled with that bliss that's not dependent on anything temporary, on that bliss that's ever increasing. So that relates to the science of the spirit soul, the science of the three modes. So sattva is sometimes compared to like an airport. Some of you were in our Bhagavad Gita course yesterday. I used this analogy. Like let's say if I want to get to London, so we can say the best place from which to get there is the Orlando airport. True. So the Orlando airport represents sattva. Okay. But now let's say I get to the Orlando airport, and that's what Krishna is speaking about in this verse, but they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. I'm at the airport, and just like I'm in the lounge, and they got music playing, and it's just like temperature's just nice, and got a nice book. And then they call, okay, a flight to London, passenger David Wolf, flight's leaving in 2 minutes, doors are closing, passenger David Wolf. And I was just like, it's really cool here. Wow. All right, yeah. All right, so then I don't get on the plane. That's the analogy. So it's not like I shouldn't have gone to the Orlando airport. Cultivate sattva and don't make it the goal. Okay? In one sense, from the Orlando airport, I'm no closer to London than I was at my home in Alachua, Florida.
And your home is what?
And my what?
And your home represents what?
My home?
Because Orlando Airport represents Central.
My home represents being thickly attached to Rajas and Tamas. Okay. Yes. So, right. Yeah. So it was progress to go to the Orlando airport. So the idea is we can cultivate sattva. And again, and there's a science. We're not getting too much into it. We're just getting the basics. Like there's sattvic in relation to food, for example. Like when inner peace, we all want peace in the world. Peace.
Non-violence.
Yeah, we want non-violence. Okay. Okay. I have a tendency towards sarcasm. So
Yes, you do.
you've noticed that. Well, okay, but then let's say now let's say if I'm eating the result of gross violence. Okay, like because my taste buds send me messages that I want the taste of blood and flesh. So I'll eat the results of like animals dying and screaming agony. Right. So like it's just like that's not gonna work. Like meaning like it will work. See, it says like, okay, so that's like eating in the lower modes, tamas, ignorance. Okay, like, to nourish this bag, I'm gonna eat the results of like gross violence. It's really like what Paul McCartney said, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be vegetarian. Right, because even those are eating the meat, right? It's like, oh, let someone else do the killing for me. Whereas like, no one's grossed out by like picking up a tomato or something. Right? So in other words, like if it's so abhorrent and disgusting and revolting, why are we choosing that as food? So that's it. So it's just like, yeah, so that's like food in lower modes. It's not about good, bad, right, wrong, moral, immoral. It's just like, okay, eating gross violent, we're gonna have a lot of violence going on inside. We're gonna have a lot of violence going on under the roof we live. We're gonna have a lot of violence going on in our nations and our communities. Okay, it's like again, guna means like rope or string. And just like we can imagine, if we have all sorts of strings knotted together, and generally we pull a string, and it becomes more gnarled, a tighter knot. But there could be like one string, a particular string, and we pull it in a certain way, and the knot unravels. So that's the sattvic string in each area of life. And whether it's our eating, our communication, our relationship with sleeping, with career, in spiritual practice, to find the sattvic string, and then the tight knot in our heart unravels. That's freedom. Vijate vidyagrantis chijante sara samshaya kshiyante chasya karmini drishta evatmanishvare. Thus, through this sattvic living, the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are slashed to pieces. We're no longer tormented by our mind. This is very, very important stuff. Okay. So towards the end of this chapter, one thing, so in the very last line of this chapter, the last verse of the last line of the last verse, Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. So another key philosophical point coming to closing here. So, the ground of all existence is the undifferentiated oneness of all energy. That sounds nice, right? But it's wrong. Okay. No, that's not the ground of all existence. So Krishna is saying, no, Krishna is saying, Brahmano hi pratishtha. He says, I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I'm the source of the oneness. I'm the source of the oneness. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matasa ram pravartate timat baba jantemam Buddha bhava samambhite. I'm the source of all spiritual material energies. So the substratum of all existence is actually transcendental personhood. Transcendental personhood. It's even more fundamental than the oneness of all energies. And just like we all have energetic manifestations, like it's if we see a nice painting. If we see a nice painting, that's like an energetic manifestation. And we might think like, oh, who's the painter? We know there's a person behind that energetic. And if we see a musical piece or even a big corporation, right, there was some person, and that company, that organization, it's an energetic manifestation of the person. So in the penultimate verse of this 14th chapter, Krishna says, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Okay. So Krishna is saying that, so that ever-expansive bliss, that's available when the spirit self engages with full devotional heart in service, called bhakti, seva bhakti, in service to the supreme, to the absolute, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Sattva, Orlando Airport, is the best platform from which to choose that bhakti. But again, the caution in this verse, we can come to Sattva, the airport, and then we can become complacent. And that can get in the way of being fiercely urgent to engage to service in God. I'll quote some Hebrew here from the Old Testament. That's like the Maha Mantra of the Old Testament. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. That's the essence of Bhagavad Gita. These are universal principles. And so we want to use the sattvic consciousness, the philosophical nature, the clean, pure habits as a platform for choosing transcendental devotional service. That's the recommendation. And so sattva, in essence, it's that energy that brings to conscious awareness that which till now was not perceived. That's the essence of sattva. And the other modes are just like thicker and thicker layers of illusion. So sattva brings to awareness that which was not perceived. That's what we talk about, like in sattva communication. Sattva communication, we're supporting each other, whether it's like this sober conversation or whether it's lighthearted humor, but sattvic relationships, we're creating value for each other in every interaction to unearth more and more of ourselves, that we're more and more of the diamond-like qualities that we've allowed to be covered, bringing to conscious awareness that which was unperceived. So we connect with our love, our power, our joy. We might see, I can see I've been wallowing in shame. And I was just thinking, poor me, I'm terrible. But I see, I wallow in shame to avoid responsibility for going forward in life and taking a risk. It just like, yes, I hold down a lot of fear to get attention from people, seeing our patterns, shining light, that sattvic communication, the essence of sattva. Essence of sattva means expanded range of choice. Now, through my sattvic relationship with myself, sattvic relationship with others, now we're okay. Now we have more of ourselves available. Yes, now I have that gentleness, that empathy, that honesty, that profound genuineness that till now I've allowed to be covered. More of ourselves available, more choices available. Sattva does not inherently mean Shanti, 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 peace. Sattva might mean that. Sattva might mean I'm ready to connect with fierce anger to protect what's dear. Whereas till now, I was too controlled by fear of anger to even get to that. Sattva means expanded range of choice to connect with any of the God-given qualities and emotions. And so the recommendation here is to not become complacent. There's a great queen from about 5,000 years ago, Queen Kunti. And she has these beautiful mantras described in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Queen Kunti, she says, Janmeshvaya Shutashi Birdamanamana Puman Naivahatya Vidatum Vai Tvamakinchana Gochara. She's talking to Krishna. So this is a monotheistic approach to spiritual life. It means one God. And one God has many names. Krishna is a name for God, meaning all attractive. Right? We all have some attractive potency. We're all attracted to others with attractive potency. So who is the source of all attractiveness? That's God, Krishna. Okay? Just like I'm one person, I'm just an ordinary person, and I have many names. Someone might call me Dr. Wolf, someone might call me David. Two people call me Dad. Okay, so one person, different relationships different names according to different relationships. So some might call Allah the Great One, Christ the Anointed One, Adonai, Father in the spiritual world, Krishna, all attractive, Rama, reservoir of all pleasure, like that. So Queen Kunti prays that like those who have like it's kind of like this verse, those who have like a relatively high level of sattva, that can be a real risk, it can be a pitfall, because they might not like feelingly call out to you, might not feelingly call out to Krishna, please engage me in your service. And that feeling kind of like spiritual desperation, I'm reminded of the song by George Harrison, My Sweet Lord. Yes. It's like, I really want to know you. I really want to serve you. I really want to know. So it's like that spiritual desperation. I want to serve God. Then that's the consciousness where we're no longer bound by the three modes of material nature, not even by material sattva. So this verse reads, Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakasha kamanamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode develop knowledge, but they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. Hare Krishna, thank you for your attention. Thank you for giving your listening power to Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna. I welcome at this time if anyone would like to share any comments or realizations or ask any questions.
No question. I always have a question.
Mani. Because you're a philosopher.
I like it.
Yes.
So in this verse, it said, and it frees one from all sinful reaction.
Yeah.
And in what when you spoke about sin, you said that which alienates ourselves from our true self.
Yeah.
So I was looking at that and I said, okay, so but in the mode of goodness, if we are free from sinful reaction, that means that we are free from anything that alienate ourselves from our true self. So what is that conditioning that condition us to the concept of happiness if it's not sinful reaction?
Okay. Thanks. Thanks for your question. Well, I'm saying like a few kind of directions interrelated of response come to me. One is like, let's call it this laziness, complacency, which isn't necessarily sinful reaction. It's just like me not being urgent. It's kind of like me not being urgent because like life's pretty good. Like life's pretty good. Like I'm not gonna get real urgent to go like that. So it's just like it's not necessarily sinful reaction. Also, we can see it. You know, there's like a continuum of definitions that like heavy alienation. That's Rajas and Tamas stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when Prabhupada talks about sattva, he equates it with bhakti. Sometimes. Kind of like demigod stuff. Like they're in bhakti, but they tend not to get real urgent.
Mm-hmm.
They tend not to get real urgent.
You don't have the impetus of suffering.
Yeah. So we're talking about happiness. So I think really to your question, it's important. Let's make distinction. Spiritual happiness and material happiness. Okay. And so material happiness will tend to be relative. It's not like the soul alive to itself as a soul in devotional connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Material happiness tends to be kind of like, it's more of like a relief from misery. It's relative, okay? The example given, Bhaktivedanta Swami gives this example sometime, like in olden times, maybe still today in some countries, to punish a criminal, they'll like dunk him under, it's really gruesome, dunk him under water, but before he'll die, lift him up and then back and the terrible stuff. And then so when we're lifted up, we think, air, I can breathe. So that's material happiness. Sorry to be blunt, but it's just like, it's a relief from terrible agony. Or material happiness is kind of like, well, I'm less miserable than him. And I guess she has it even worse than me. I guess I'm doing pretty good. Okay, so it's relative. It's not the positive bliss of the soul. Okay, and so so we mentioned like so we want to cultivate sattva and sattva it's the purest and it's the most material happy. But bhakti, this transcendental loving devotional service to God, that's not dependent on anything material, even material sattva. We could, because I mean, there are ways to get to London from Alachua. Yeah. So without going to Orlando, but Orlando is the best place. So from wherever we're at, lower mode, rajas, envy, jealousy, just like all this non-spiritual stuff, bitterness, whatever, wherever we're at, call out to Krishna with love and devotion. So we don't need to cultivate sattva. At the same time, sattva is the best platform from which to choose steadily devotion. Cultivate sattva, and bhakti is not dependent on it. And it goes both ways, and it's described in depth in this chapter. We cultivate sattva that naturally leads to transcendental Krishna consciousness, and that's the platform of liberation from birth and death, and that's real success for the human life. And from wherever we're at, connect with the transcendental process of Krishna consciousness, read Bhagavad Gita, and then naturally we become more sattvic. I had an experience recently. We have, many of you know, we have our Sattva Tov seminars, and I'll reveal in some of our seminars we have ground rules, and like one ground rule is we ask that for the days of the seminar, only vegetarian food, no meat, fish, eggs, poultry, like that. That's its ground rule for some of our seminars, and any of the food that we serve, of course, complies with that ground rule. Anyhow, so someone was in the course, and she'd been coming to some of our programs for a few years, here and there, occasionally, but she had an attraction. But then after, there was a week-long course pretty recently in another part of North America, and after the course, she shared that because she, coming into the course, she was eating meat and like that. She said after the course, she shared that that just by following that ground rule, now she reads Prabhupada's books, and it's just like she's absorbing it, and she could see, because she was eating the results of gross violence in a lower mode, she's like, she couldn't absorb it. Yeah. And so right. So we more sattvic in our habits, then naturally we're enthusiastically embracing Krishna consciousness. Wherever we're at, lower modes, embrace Krishna consciousness, and naturally we lose our taste for, maybe degraded stuff on the internet, or we lose our taste for lower mode food, that sort of thing. Thank you, Molly.
Yeah, and I like the translation actually of become conditioned by the concept of happiness.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not become conditioned by happiness.
Yeah.
Is that become conditioned by the concept of happiness. Because there is that sense of peace, and that sounds so boring to me, but there is that sense of peace and all that. And then conditioned by the concept of happiness. Really interesting.
Yeah, that's a nice distinction there. Yeah, so I didn't mention that. So the concept of, because that's a thing. Just like, okay, let's take the analogy of the car and the driver of the car. Okay, so like Marie and I, we drove here in a Toyota Corolla. So let's say I'm driving in the Toyota, and I'm thinking I'm Japanese. And the next day I get in a Volkswagen. Now I think I'm German. The next day we get in a Renault. I think we're French.
What's a Renault?
I got it on everything.
Okay, you're Italian. There you go. We get it, Lynn. Okay. So, okay, thank you. All right. So then you say, look, no, David, that's just the car. It's just the car you're driving. You're not a red Japanese person just because you're driving like a red Toyota. No, you're the driver. Okay. All right. So now, but let's say if I'm in the illusion, and that's the idea of analogies. That's easy to understand. We're not the car. But that's the same thing I'm doing. If I'm thinking I'm white, 61 years old, I'm from Philadelphia, like that. It's like thinking I'm a blue German because I'm in a blue Mercedes or something. It's the same thing. So yeah, something easy to understand metaphorically to help us understand something that we're muddled about. Okay, but so let's say if I'm in that illusion, then I'm the car. And we can understand, like, we don't want to neglect the car. The car is important. Let's say if we Let's say if we hear there's a crash, do we immediately ask, is the car okay? Hope it's not in the junkyard. No. Was anyone injured? Did anyone die? Because we know the car has its importance, but the driver is so much more important. And maybe later we'll ask, did the insurance pay the money or this and that? But that's secondary. So similarly, the body has its importance, but the spirit soul is much, much, much more important. But so let's say if I'm taking care of the car, let's say I get it washed and I service it and I get fancy seat covers and I get it detailed, whatever that is. I still don't know what it is, but whatever. Okay, we take care of the car and we spend, okay, and then someone comes and thinks like, and I think I'm really happy. No, look, it's shiny. And it's like, no, the windshield fluid is topped off. I'm really happy. And I was, look, David, like you haven't like eaten a meal in like a week. You haven't drunk any liquid in like a few days. You haven't taken a bath in a month. And I go, no, but the carburetor's in good shape. Well, that's not you, that's the car. So that's what the concept of happiness. Right? In sattva, we can think like my car, including the subtle, to use a more nuanced analogy. Okay, we're not the car, we're not the driver. Similar, like I'm not the computer hardware and I'm not the computer software. The software represents subtle material energy, mind, intellect, and material ego. In this bhakti yoga, the goal is not to get rid of ego. In some attempts at spirituality, they'll just get rid of ego altogether. The problem with that is it's completely impossible. It's not even desirable. Ego means sense of who I am. And I am someone. I'm eternal spirit, soul, servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So if a false ego is I am this body and all the designations connected with this body. So yeah, so we want to eliminate false ego. Yeah. So I'm thinking to make this body happy or even this mind happy, that's the concept of happiness. But what's nourishment for the driver of the car? That's the spirit, soul, the operator of the computer. That's the real happiness. And in sattva, because that's where sattva can be disadvantageous. In rajas and tamas, it can be clear. Like I don't even have. No, I'm miserable. I'm suffering. But when the pandemic ends, then I'll be happy. Like just all this, based on the externals. In sattva, we think, no, I'm happy. But it's not the happiness of the soul. It's just the concept of happiness that comes from, the car is taken care of relatively nicely. Thanks for that, Mama.
It seems that it's not very attractive to have a goal at sattva, to be attracted to sattva. And because I never been attracted to sattva. You know that?
Well, yeah, you do. You do transcendence and rajas. Yeah.
And at the same time, as a means to a goal, this is really attractive.
Yeah, it's a means to a goal.
Only a means to a goal.
Right.
Nothing else.
Right.
And that becomes really attractive.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I'm reminded of a quote by Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, but he didn't have much concept of transcendence, but there's many great quotes. Mark Twain said, he said, heaven for climate, heaven for climate, hell for association. So like the weather's nice in heaven, but as far as it doesn't really sound like a real fun place. Like as far as really having fun with the guys and the gals, I'll choose hell. Thank you. Okay. But sattvic is like heavenly. Yeah, okay. Well, you play harps and what's going on there? No, really. Yeah, right. Like as a, and that's the thing, because but this. See this transcendental, it's called Shuddha Sattva. It's transcendental platform. This is a non-stop party. This is variety. Like we think we have variety in color in the material realm. We do, but it's all dull compared to the relationship and the romance and the adventure and every form of relationship that exists here is really a shadow form of what exists in the devotional world, which is really the world of the soul. So there's nothing boring about it. So sattva as a means to as a platform, launch pad. Nico.
I just want to start by expressing gratitude for this class and for everyone showing up. And I just had a question on the on what you were just talking about, the distinction of practicing bhakti yoga. My understanding is you're no longer creating karma. Like sattva is good karma, raja generally, and raja and tamas is what we call bad karma. And then this idea of the spiritual world or going to the spiritual world. My question is, like, can that be attained in any moment? Because isn't Krishna and everything eternal? So whenever we're stepping into bhakti, are we stepping into that place?
Thank you. I appreciate your question. The short answer is yes. Yeah, that karma-free, that karma-free consciousness existence, it's available at every moment. I venture to say that all of us, or at least many of us right here in this moment, because we're absorbed in this transcendental philosophical discussion, self-realization. So this is timeless. This is karma-free. We're not producing material reactions to the extent that we're absorbed in bhakti. So the answer is yeah, we engage in bhakti, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is karma-free life, right? So yeah, it's simple. Any of these mantras, these are all karma-free vibration, right? This is transformation through sound vibration. Transformation through sound vibration. And right, so then the question, challenge, opportunity, because is how to live on that karma-free platform steadily, like 24 hours a day. And so we're so in a sense, to the extent that we develop sattvic habits, then that's helpful to more and more steadily choose the karma-free consciousness, the karma-free activities of bhakti. Sometimes we make a distinction between states of consciousness and stages of consciousness. And so we might have an epiphany of realizing who we are, a spirit soul in love with God, Krishna, and that's completely karma-free. Okay, all right. And then what's happening an hour from now? What's happening Tuesday night at 8 p.m.? What's happening next weekend? Are we yeah, okay. It's a thought-provoking question. Yeah, so that's the thing. So and those states of consciousness are wonderful. That's what it's transcendental. It's above even sattva. It's called Shuddha Sattva. The sattva in the material world, as described in this chapter, it's always contaminated with some rajas and tamas. But bhakti, it's Shuddha Sattva. So then what's called sadhana. We have sadhana bhakti. It means we discipline ourselves, follow the rules and regulations. And then we experience, and I don't want to be cynical. I mean, maybe there are some in this room or otherwise where just like 100% of the time they're in that karma-free place of love of God. And that's, and it could be, but so I know for myself, this sadhana, I've been practicing sadhana for about 40 years now. So through practicing sadhana, it's like fulfilling our vow to chant Hare Krishna japa every day, reading Prabhupada's books every day, rising early, like that. By practicing sadhana, then more and more, we're at higher and higher stages of consciousness. and you might say a vital purpose of those epiphany states of consciousness is to inspire us to become even more steady and rigorous and enthusiastic to practice sadhana, to serve Prabhupada's movement with steadiness, Even it could be said, like in the Christian tradition, they have this concept of the dark night of the soul. And we have these great Christian saints, Catholic saints. And oftentimes they write, whether it's their experience or humility, but they write where they're not feeling that. They're feeling very low and like that. And they continue to serve Jesus steadily with love and devotion. It could be argued that when we're not feeling it and we continue steadily to chant the names of Krishna, that shows even more love. Right? Otherwise, it's just like, yes, when I'm feeling the ecstasy, I'll serve you and read books about you. But if I'm not feeling it, then nah. Okay. So yeah. So that but bhakti is the karma-free platform. That's why, like later in the program, we're gonna have food. We're gonna have vegetarian food, but that doesn't describe it really. It's actually karma-free food. Yeah, made it's love and devotion. Not just served to us with love and devotion. Yes. Right? Yeah. So it's prepared with Krishna for love. Because even a vegetarian diet, it's less karma. But even in whatever, picking those potatoes or whatever, there's some violence in a vegetarian diet too. So prasadam is a completely karma-free diet, and it's a whole food process that supports us in self-realization and devotional love and connection to God. So there's karma-free communication, there's karma-free vibration, karma-free work, and that's the science of bhakti. Thanks for your question. Stephanie.
So this feels vulnerable to say, but I see how in a lot of ways I'm not feeling proud of the lack of sattvic habits that I've had.
Mm-hmm.
And I see how in certain ways my relationship with spirituality is like my relationship with authority.
Okay. Yeah.
And the austerity and commitment, when I'm feeling shame and guilt, then it can feel like have to.
You feel have to, yeah.
But then that's like a catch-22 if I'm just kind of turning over in my shame hole. So yeah, I see, like, I don't want to move from a have to energy. And also it feels almost like I remember a time in my life when I was chanting every day and it felt like get to.
Yeah.
And when I was connected to my service in a way that felt like devotion to God.
Mm.
And it wasn't about me.
Mm.
And it wasn't
a self-absorption, my spiritual practice, I have to do this, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just see the different ways that I'm entangled in the material world and certain ways that I'm continuing to follow my senses and either follow something that in a sense could be framed as tamasic, like easy.
Sure.
And or passionate, rajasic, like exciting.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen in a lot of ways this past year that following my feelings in that way is not really going to be blissful like it is to feel in communion with God throughout my day. So yeah, I feel like from where I am, there's been this, it's like mentally and like experientially too at times, but not as often as I would like to. Like I mentally, I feel like more often and cognizant of how I want to be serving God.
Yeah.
But it feels almost like another, it feels abstract. It feels like almost not
Not palpable.
yeah. And I also see how in ways like I've let go of and set boundaries with myself through these realizations. Like I feel almost like I needed to go through this new like layer of learning around where am I resisting the process of bhakti yoga? Like where am I in resistance and attachment to certain experiences in the material world? And so I see how, it's like I feel further from God than ever in a sense.
Okay.
And I also feel closer than ever at the same time.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm kind of like at a precipice in a sense of pivoting back into more discipline probably than ever, but I really don't want to come from discipline and a shaming, punishing, like
You want to come from joy and enthusiasm.
yeah.
So like you've gone away from the discipline of spiritual practice, japa, that sort of thing. So in a sense, you're further than you've been in a long time from God. In another sense, and that's what I get in your sharing, is you feel yourself on the cusp of making a more profound commitment than ever to give your life to service to God, to develop that love, because that's, as I shared, that's where the real joy is.
Join the crowd.
Yeah.
You can relate to Stephanie's sharing. Thanks for expressing.
Yeah, I see how also it's like I can get attached to the results of bhakti yoga.
Okay.
I can get attached to the bliss of that experience, and then I forget the essence of who I am as a devotional soul. And then that's like, I don't know, it's like humbling once again. So yeah, just it feels like I'm in a learning process, have been in a learning process of seeing how anything other than bhakti is not sustainably life-giving.
Okay. Yeah.
It's going to be intense and just confusing.
Ultimately alienating.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Sometimes I can speak for myself. Whether I'm in the process of bhakti or not, I always get confirmation of the process of bhakti. I always get confirmation of Bhagavad Gita whether I'm in there, because if I'm not in the process, I experience the fear, the insecurity, the anxiety, like that. And say, okay, that confirms this chapter. I'm in tamas and rajas, and so I'm going to have these experiences. Yep, just like it says. And feel impelled to, in the 9th chapter, Krishna describes this process. Prajakshava gamam damyam shushukam kartumabhyam. Krishna says this process is joyfully performed. Joyfully performed. And so I've been like fulfilling a vow since the summer of 1983 to chant at least 16 Hare Krishna Mahamantra japa rounds every day. And so can I say, and whenever I'm chanting, I'm joyful. No. My mind and my emotions are doing lots of non-joyful things. At the same time, I can truly say, it is true for me, I am joyfully enthusiastic every day to fulfill my commitment, to fulfill my vow. Because I know that's a platform for ever increasing joy. When I'm doing it, sometimes I'm less attentive and sometimes I'm distracted. I don't even want to tell you what I'm thinking about when I'm chanting, you know, all sorts of things. But I'm enthusiastic to fulfill my vow, to chant and read Prabhupada's books and get up early and come to programs like this. Because I know this is a platform for ever deepening joy. And so I'm hearing, Stephanie, you're in a process of transforming your relationship with commitment.
Mhm.
So commitment, discipline, that like, yeah, it doesn't need to mean owner it. Now I'm a slave. There's a quote by Paul Salo, a Spanish writer. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially said, real freedom is the capacity to commit to our highest good.
Mhm.
So of course we don't want to be slaves to our commitments, you know, like that. But to what extent am I a slave to my fear of commitment? Because my fear of commitment prevents me from committing to chant 16 rounds every day, which is, I know, my highest joy. So that's what I hear. Like yeah, I get to use the tool of commitment. I get to joyfully engage in the discipline of these bhakti yoga sattvic practices, and yeah, and it can feel austere sometimes. My mind doesn't feel like it, but as a spirit soul, this is a joyful process. So thanks for sharing. Thank you, Stephanie. Sir, I appreciated your sharing earlier. Wait, what's your name if you want? Steve. Hello, Steve. I'm David.
Hey, Dave.
Glad to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Any other comments or questions at this time?
I'll share that the reason I was attracted to this verse when I read chapter 14, because we're studying it in class, and it just like touched me and really deeply when I thought I'm so glad to be here at Prabhupada's house. I shared this in our last gathering that I get sometimes I get so lost in that peace, because it's so much more peaceful than my previous life, that I just coast. I get like on the high of like, it's so peaceful out here in Melrose, and this house is so beautiful. And there's guests coming, and everyone that comes here thinks it's amazing. So it's like so much sattva. And then I get to do, you know, there's no distraction during my rounds in the morning. I'm cooking prasadam, and like I'm playing the harmonium. I'm sitting on a beautiful porch. It just keeps going, and I get so I feel so grateful that when I come down in the morning, I always pray first thing. I always just feel that gratitude. It just grabs me so good, and then but then throughout the day it starts adjusting itself, because it can grab onto some raja when it's time to serve dinner, when people are checking in, or I've got 10 loads of laundry, it can shift. And so I get it back the next morning, and then it plays around. But for the most part, it's so much better than what I used to experience. Then when I read this verse, I was like, oh no, this isn't like somehow in my mind I had like gotten to some kind of plateau or something, and I could like stop trying so hard or stop doing something and relax. And so there's not a whole lot of relaxing around here, but it's so much more relaxed than my previous life that to me, I just like with, you know, hold the head underwater thing, it's that breath of like, well, I'll take it because it's so much better, even though I can certainly grab it and be rajasic immediately, because that's my natural state of being. I think that I was there so long, I'm still untangling that knot. But what resonated with me about the verse is like,
Yes.
staying in, like, I could be happy and stay here. Like, it's like, I could just chant my rounds, cook some prashadam, host some guests, talk about Krishna, read the Bhagavad Gita, go to the book club, and just do those things, and it would be great. But it's like this ceiling that I forgot there was a ceiling, and I was like, I when I read that verse, it's like it pushed over me, like I could feel like I'm getting comfortable, like I'm getting too comfortable, and it's time to look at that. So anyway, that's why I've been thinking about this verse a lot the last few weeks, and I'm glad you spoke about it. And kind of spoke about it yesterday in Gita class, and then it gives me good juice to talk about when I talk about it with the guests. And so thank you for really allowing class, and for everybody who's here asking great questions. And it's just stimulating for me to look at where I'm at and not getting too complacent. And just accepting this is so good that I'll just stop here and play at Prabhupada's house. Take it easy.
Thank you, Lakshmi Priya. Thanks for sharing your inspiration to choose this verse, which has catalyzed this wonderful auspicious gathering in Sangha, this spiritual association. And for your sincerity, you've created and attracted, co-created with Anasuya, this wonderful devotional life. And you're looking at, okay, that it can be easy to become complacent in that, to not be in this just like urgency to Tivrena Bhakti Yogina. Tivrena means with intensity. And so I hear your sincerity to want to serve with ever greater intensity. And hearing you sharing Lakshmi Priya, I'm also an aspect of sattvic and devotional living, because completely my experience too, like morning, chanting and reading, and oftentimes we have our morning programs, and then just like feel the purity like that. All right, where am I at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, 4 p.m.? What's happening at 7:30 p.m.? Right, and so that's common for me too, the lower modes, and that's good. It's a science. Good to try those pre-dawn hours, especially. They're especially imbued with the sattvic energy. There's like free nectar in the air, right? And that's why decades ago, I was always a night person, and I still have that tendency. But now I feel like, like if I'm not up really early to get those free nectar nuggets in the air, pre-dawn hour, I feel like this was like, I really missed something there.
Yes, like you're behind all day.
Yeah, and then afternoon becomes rajas, and we know, like, okay, like when do we do the stupidest those when we're up late at night. I don't even have to. So that's the time. That's why those are the hours. That's the hours for sleep, right? Because we're awake. That's when we get ourselves in trouble. Steve, yes, you have a comment.
I noticed for me the desire for more God is just another top hit song on the radio.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. And what I'm hearing, Steve, is like that more God, more service to God. You experience that. It can just be like another way to feel good about myself. It can be another.
Well, it's a lack of being with gratitude. I don't have enough God.
Yeah.
Rather tricky.
It's
the trickster at work.
Trickster.
That's the way I look.
Like a very clever material ego that can even use God to alienate you from the just heartfelt gratitude.
Isn't that something?
I appreciate your sharing. It gets to like subtle psychology, how we can, definitely me too, How even in the name of something good or godly, I can just use that to reinforce a present connection with gratitude and genuine divine connection in the moment.
The more and more, God.
Thanks for sharing, Steve. I'm thinking I want to go to the next part of the program where we'll be chanting the names of the divine. In the first part of the program, Anasunya led us in chanting mantra in the form of kirtan. Another way to chant mantra, for those who would like to participate, is called japa. Mantra, it's an ancient eternal Sanskrit term, and it has 2 syllables. The first, like the English word mind, comes from the Sanskrit mana. And tra means to extricate, to liberate, to deliver. So mantra is sound vibration that frees the mind from the lower modes of nature. So Lakshmi Priya is distributing some japa beads for those who would like to participate. And to chant japa, it's generally recommended, for different scientific reasons, it's generally recommended to use the right hand, thumb and middle finger of the right hand. And to start by holding the bead next to the large bead. By large bead, I mean the bead with the tassel. And then on that bead next to the large bead, to chant one Maha Mantra. The words to the Maha Mantra are up there on that sign. So we would chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then move to the second bead away from the large bead and chant one mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then the third bead away from the large bead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In this way, we'll chant one round of japa. On the strand of beads, there's 108 beads, not including the large bead. So to chant one round means to chant 108 Maha Mantras. The base, it's a meditation process, just like some people meditate on a candle or breath. This is meditation on transcendental sound vibration. And the basic process is we do our best to focus our mind and power of hearing on each word of the mantra and notice our experience. Experience our experience. If we notice our mind wandering, just notice that and bring the mind and consciousness and hearing back to each word of the mantra and be present with our experience. Really a principle of any meditation technique, even any multimedia presentation, a principle is the more senses engaged in an activity, the easier it is for the mind to focus. So with this mantra meditation, it's a process of transformation, a process of engagement. It's not a process of elimination. With mantra meditation, we're spiritually engaging our power of speech, our power of hearing, our tongue, and if we use japa, our sense of touch. Okay, so this is a mantra, 16 words, really composed of 3 words combined in the form of a 16-word mantra. And each of the 3 words, Hare, Krishna, and Rama, are names of the divine, names of God. Hare indicates the feminine essence of the Supreme. Rama means the reservoir of all spiritual bliss, and Krishna means all attractive. So for those who want to participate, let's start with the first bead next to the large bead and chant one round together, and do our best to focus on the sound vibration, and be with our experience. Let us begin. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this transcendental bliss is available at any time. It's always available. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he rejuvenated this process of chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. He rejuvenated it about 500 years ago. And he said, Nam Namakri Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Satrabhita Niyamita Smarane Nakala. Nakala means for this mantra to be potent and to experience the bliss. There's no rules or regulations. No rules or regulations. Kirtanya Sadahari. We can chant sitting, standing, on our own, walking. We can be singing and chanting while we're driving. No rules or regulations. Because Bhaktivedanta Swami described that this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This is the original consciousness of the self. And we can experience, we just experience this. So this bliss is available at any time.
It's free too.
It's free. And it's free. Prabhupada often says, there's no tax. It's free. Why don't you take it? Oh, well. Because there's so many good TV shows on. Why would I want to spend time chanting Hare Krishna? It's like, I'm going to go to the club. I mean, no. So where is there a quality of bliss that can compare to even a drop? Where is there a quality of bliss? It's available at all times. It's available in any way. I mean, once, it's about 9 years ago, and she came to some of our programs, and afterwards she went back she lives in another part of Florida. And because she took that, and she said, she wrote to me, can I chant while I'm shopping? Can I chant when I'm playing tennis? She wrote to me, can I chant when I'm, so the answer is yes. Whatever we're doing, chant Hare Krishna. Of course, we don't recommend chanting with beads while driving. That would be dangerous. But we can be singing, And at the same time, it's recommended, if we want to progress in stages of this blissful consciousness, to commit to some focused chanting every day. So actually, yeah, for about 39 years, I chant at least 16 rounds every day. And the idea, not that I'm good at it, but at least my aspiration is that for those 16 rounds, I endeavor to do that when I'm not doing anything else. Whether my commitment's 1 round, 2 rounds, mine is 16. And then, like while we're cooking, or walking in the park, whatever we're doing, we can chant. And this is the original consciousness of the self. That's why this whole process of bhakti, it can seem so foreign, and at the same time, how come this feels like I'm coming home? How come this feels like I'm coming home? Hare Krishna, thank you for chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you for participating. Now, if I understand correctly, the next part of the program will be like standing, dancing kirtan for those who choose.
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, I
What's your-
was wondering if Stephanie, I didn't ask you in advance and I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But she's such a beautiful kirtan. She's not always here for this part of the program, and it's a little wet outside, and the patio furniture is stuff wet. And we could go under the front porch, but I'm kind of just enjoying that we're all in. No, but it's just kind of that dampy, the stuff's wet, except on the front porch where it's covered, which would put us in sort of a long shape. So I was thinking that since we're all in here, it would be nice. I like the intimacy of the group, and I think that I don't get a lot of this closeness. So if I'm being selfish a little bit, I was thinking, could we just stay in here together for a little bit longer? And if Stephanie, if you would leave your beautiful presence your time, like I've heard her leave here so many times, but not with all of us together. Experience that. Yeah. And then we would go.
Okay.
Please get up and dance.
Okay.
Like grab some instruments.
Okay, Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so thank you, Lakshmi Priya, for this inspiring idea of Stephanie leading us in kirtan. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol, Damayanti, Kim, and Suzanne.
That's on the stage, you can use mine if you
I'm not sure if I know the difference. This is great.
Yeah, I was just looking around. I wasn't really going to. Which one do you like? Because there's one, this one side. So like I play that way. Yeah, that's what I do too. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Let's make sure that that's.
Hey, Jay.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Mantra Ki Jai.
In the dining room. In the dining room. In the dining room.
Thank you, Stephanie. Very inspiring.
Thank you, devotion, your voice. Thank you, devotion, your voice. It's an honor. Yes, we will serve Rashidam. So we have the dining room and then we have a table that's kind of in the living space, so there's enough for like 12 of us, so we can all sit around a table. And we'll serve. So just seat yourself and I'll come to you.
Thank you so much. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Okay. So you'll be on this
It is one from the reaction. When, like, like, if I look at my life, I don't have much tamas in my life, really. I try to see it. I have some there and there, but mainly I haven't much tamas in my life. So, most of the time I'm not very strong. Compared to most of the world, I'm very related to cycle. Morning meditation, challenge, lots of activities and all of that.
Oh, the air conditioning.
But at the same time, our sexual reaction cannot be done by itself. Like the seed, like, how there is a seed of sinful reaction, there's a sprouted one, the latent one, and the manifested one. I was just thinking.
Really?
Yeah, in chapter 4, it's clear that bhakti destroys everything.
Only bhakti.
There's a lot of subtleties in the language. So freeze one doesn't mean that it's all destroyed. I mean, there's a difference of reaction. Maybe sinful reactions are excretion from to the heavy ones, Rajas and Tamas, but Sattva. It's still material karma, but it's on the way of liberation. It's on the path of liberation.
Could we also look at it frees one from all sinful reaction, from like accumulating,
From accumulating.
like not necessarily past one,
Right.
but like if one act is goodness, and it frees one from all sinful reaction. There is no sinful reaction to any action. There's no sinful reaction from any activities in my goodness.
It doesn't destroy the past sinful reactions.
Yeah. Frees one from the whole sinful reaction. Could it be that that sentence means it frees one from all sinful reaction? When you're acting in all goodness, you're free from sinful reaction by virtue of
Did you 3-year program?
the word goodness.
PhD 3 years?
That's so many things. You'll have good everything. So it's a role of communication. So I'll try to control you and I'm implicated.
Yeah.
That's why control communication. Right. So I'm supporting you to connect with that. So I'm not implicated.
Yeah.
You can't blame me.
How many years?
I get the credit of it. So just as an example. Or and integrated. Okay, like one's in the process of being free from all sinful reaction. Like, look, I'm clearly in the process. I'm looking over there. I'm in the shower. I'm at the organ, you know. So I'm in the process. So there's different ways you can understand it. I don't see one. Just like
Well, yeah, when we act in goodness, it's emanating and we from all sinful reaction. But it doesn't say from past. It
right.
doesn't say from past.
Right. I see this. I think these are all valid perspectives, all valid elements, valid realizations.
Or it's just spiritual reality because we got some.
Am I correct to understand you're not going to take a shot here?
Going to.
You do, okay.
I don't know if I will sit with 12 people on the table and see it's cacophonic for me.
That whole thing.
Yeah, I prefer to sit somewhere and if someone comes sit with me and speak with them, but a really big table. It's
Not
just,
social thing.
yeah, it doesn't feel.
And this was a nice point. I noticed that before the class started, but I didn't remember during the class, but the concept of happiness, that just like,
Yeah, it's not commissioned by happiness.
right, the concept. Yeah, it's like the appearance of control.
Yeah, exactly. The concept of happiness, because maybe in a mode of goodness, that concept of happiness is not developed. Like in a mode of ignorance, it's not even happiness.
Right.
And in a mode of passion, it's so much like nectar at the beginning and suffering at the end. And so the happiness is like so illusory and temporary. And so in a mode of goodness is kind of, there is a concept of happiness that makes a person do austerity and sacrifice and all that for concept of happiness. Yeah. So much, it's like as I'm endeavoring to dive more and more. It's really interesting how books are not like that. Books we read it and it's like, oh, I know that.
Right.
But with Srila Prabhupada's transcendental knowledge giving through the medium of writing, it's each time that, oh, I never read that. When we went to the Bhagavad Gita, I stayed for the entire thing. It took us 3 hours to read. And
Wait, yesterday? That was,
no, when we did the Gita Jayanti.
at the Jayanti.
Like we went through the entire Bhagavad Gita in one meeting. It was 3 hours. And so many verses. Oh, that's exactly what I was thinking those are there. I never saw them before. And it was so purifying to go through the whole entire Bhagavad Gita non-stop like that. And so many of the reading, and only we can go there. But so many of the reading.
I'm fine to stay here. I'm also not into the crowd. So I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, that's right. And it was last night. Some lectures. Prabhupada's often sometimes I would pause and because every word is so full of meaning.
So Prabhupada lecture, yeah.
Yeah, the Prabhupada will say every word in these verses.
Oh, he said that.
He says that several times. And then one of last night.
And first we don't know Sanskrit.
Right.
We have
right.
Prabhupada's English, it's already full of meaning and nuance and really shows that. And then I believe that in the Sanskrit, there is stratum of understanding of all those verses, which is probably like the challenge of the pure devotee who understand Sanskrit.
I would say bring it into English. It's like Prabhupada.
Well, which stratum you take.
Okay, sure.
Like if you go way deeper, and then the meaning is really so much more intimate, maybe, or like with deeper meaning. But maybe that's not the stratum that's going to serve the devotees and followers that you're serving.
Yeah, it's like here's a meaning from the ultimate perspective, from the Madhyama, from the Kanishta, from their place.
Mm-hmm. And that's why sometimes it's fascinating. Like the one that's most fascinating, I think, is what's called that book? Elevation, no, what's to higher planet?
Easy Journey to Outer Planet.
Easy Journey to Higher Planet.
Sure.
I don't actually remember, but he has so many verses and he doesn't quote the Sanskrit. He just quotes the English, and they are all Bhagavad Gita English, like Bhagavad Gita verses. But none of them are the same translation that he had in his Bhagavad Gita Macmillan. And it's so fascinating. One day I want to do
Yeah,
like, I want to do the comparison because there are like so many other things. That's the stratum I'm speaking about because when he published that in 60.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before he came to America.
Yeah, it was even, yeah. In fact, reading the Back to Godhead, 1960 Back to Godhead. The 1960 Back to Godhead is pretty much, it's Nectar of Devotion, Easy Journey, Shri Upanishad, Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's basically, in the form of articles, he's writing the books.
But probably from a different stratum too.
Right.
Because he's not speaking to
Right.
young American who are completely in ignorance of
Right.
anything.
Yeah, so the original Easy Journey is actually in Back to Godhead articles, and then put it in the book.
Ah, I
It's the
see.
same with, if you look at 1960 Back to Godhead, it's pretty much got all the Isha Upanishad purports. You know, the one that got printed in 68, in some editing, but it all appears in Back to Godhead. The whole first chapter, the Spiritual Master Chapter, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's all Back to Godhead articles
From before. I mean,
from 1960.
hmm.
Yeah, no, that's so because the Easy Journey is like the cosmology, and that's there, like Easy Journey, fifth canto Bhagavatam, the cosmology part. So that's very clear. So like these verses, there's the perception and dimension of the demigods, of the pure devotees, of an ordinary conditioned soul on earth, and Bhagavatam speaking to all those dimensions all the time, and in the cosmology part, it's very clear.
In the fifth canto. You mean?
Fifth canto.
Okay.
And the
Going there.
Easy Journey is connected with fifth canto.
Easy Journey is connected with fifth canto, and he quotes a lot from the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think that's a book maybe someone wrote already to like take each verse of Gita, for example, and then look at all the translations that Srila Prabhupada have about this verse, you know, in all those books, and then brings them in one place. And I think it would be so much churning of like, wow, here is a nuance that I didn't see in that translation, and here is a nuance because Prabhupada bring out different point in each of his translation, and so we get different stratum of consciousness around the Sanskrit, of course.
Yeah, very rich research. Because again, because when Prabhupada, sometimes they'll give a different translation, like in the Bhagavatam purport of the Gita first, then he does the Gita.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So what I heard is like in the edited versions of the Bhagavatam, they're switching it to the edited version of the Gita translation. It's like no, like Prabhupada did that on purpose.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, yes, it needs to be.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible because then
Yeah, you just miss.
we need to do that job then.
Yeah.
That work of translating.
Yeah.
That's quite a good work.
Yeah.
Of course, as long as there's a number, it's easy to do it. Or like say Srimad Bhagavatam, 111.
Yeah.
Like if when it's quoted in the books, it's quoted with Srimad Bhagavatam 111,
Oh,
then
right,
we
yeah.
can very easily
Search.
think of it. Say some verse, it's not like that.
Well, that's rich and important.
Because I'm fascinated
Research.
by that myself.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm surprised nobody created that.
so it's waiting for you. Because Prabhupada does deliberately give different English translations at different times for the same verses.
It does.
It's a So what was we
And
listening?
they change it. Oh, this is the way it should be translated like that.
The way we translate in 86, just change everything to that.
God.
You know what? It's pretty,
They are
pretty,
taking everything out. Of course, I'm sure that people find Prabhupada and find Krishna
It's
in
still-
those books. Krishna is
It
still there, like
still
he's
sad.
in the Bible somewhere, but oh
Hare
God.
Krishna. Thank you, Ashwani.
Can we
That's right
eat
there.
here?
What's your opinion?
I don't know. Is it okay to eat it?
I don't know. You can sit with each other.
Well, thank you for making plans. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much.
I think it's okay to eat back.
Okay. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yeah.
It's a fascinating research.
Would you like some of your own pasta?
Sure.
It's like, I didn't know you were going to be.
Thank you.
Would you like water?
Holly?
No.
Not for me.
Okay, no.
Is it yes?
Not for me.
Not for you, okay.
Thanks. On the plate.
Alright.
Yeah, I'm surprised people don't like that. But if that mentality is that there's a problem with it, then I'm not surprised that nobody made it. There's something wrong with that. Things on the side that people don't know.
Because I've sung that song before, and usually when I sing it, I like to kind of like build up the intensity.
Okay.
And I remember somebody once giving some somewhat constructive feedback. It almost sounded like you're not supposed to have that much fun, or like singing kirtan, or that it's like too rock and roll, or I don't quite know remember what the judgment or advice was. Yeah. And it's a melody that I made up, that I actually discovered one time when I was playing ukulele from Marie singing kirtan, which I know is not a traditional instrument for kirtan.
Harmonium is not either.
Harmonium is not either.
Definitely not.
Really? But yet it's so common. It's not. Okay.
You will never see a gopi or even an associate of Chaitanya playing harmonium.
Okay.
Yeah, harmonium came from France. And from France it went to England, and from England it arrived in India. I don't know, like maybe at the beginning of the 19th century or something like that. Because there was no Vaishnava harmony. So you can use probably closer to a traditional instrument than harmonium. I'm just saying, it's just a
Right.
alternate perspective.
Right. Yeah, that's nice.
Yes, and you found that melody came to.
Yeah,
And
and
melody thought to have a life on their own.
yeah, and I don't even think that much of it, but then afterwards, George, who was staying here, he heard it, played on the ukulele, and that next time that I was here, he was like, "Can you play that melody again?" And I figured out the chords on the harmonium, because I didn't have my ukulele, and then it became like something that Leah wanted to hear over and over, George wanted to hear. They recorded, and then like I've gone to different meditation and sabbatoh type circles, and it's been liked. And so I felt this, I guess, encouragement that like, right. That it's not like I was like, this is it, but I feel like collectively there's been, direction, support, yeah. So, and I really enjoy it, and it really connects me to my heart and to God. So I feel like that's the essence. And so I want to be validated in myself, and I'm also like, I don't mean any disrespect, and so yeah, I don't know what if you guys have me.
I haven't seen any disrespect in what you did.
Okay.
Yeah, you're chanting Hare Krishna, that's inspiring, and you chant and dance. Prabhupada so much encouraged, like, the Hare Krishna, the tunes you're familiar with. It's not dependent on a particular tune. So these works, I was inspired by. Yeah, the joyful depth and intensity that I experienced from you.
Devotion.
Thank you. Okay, sweet. I'll put it here. I appreciate the appreciation. Yes, I will. I also want to share a realization that I had while chanting japa, which is that this coming year that I want to chant 16 rounds every day. To make a commitment to that year. That feels more personal to me than life.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've lately felt inspired to wake up early and chant 16 rounds certain days.
Yeah.
And then I see that the next day comes, I've just slept, and so it feels like I'm in ignorance almost about the potency of the mantra from the day before. So I see how I want to keep it
Steady.
going. Yeah. And to me, it feels like I've built my life in a way that it's only almost maintained in alignment with the consciousness that I created it. Like, it's only sustainable if I'm putting my sadhana as my highest priority. So 2 hours per morning.
Yeah.
Like, if I weren't doing that, I would be wasting 2 hours doing something else.
Yeah.
So
We have 24.
yeah, we have 24.
And then, if we spend 24 just for the maintenance of the body and the mind, then it's like what David was describing about, cleaning the car, making sure the car. So 24 hours, how much of that I want to dedicate to my soul, to the soul and to God. So you decided like, I want to do 2 hours.
Yeah, or however long it takes from 16 rounds.
Putting the big rocks in first.
Yeah.
And you'll forget that's the biggest rock. 16 rounds, put that in first. Otherwise, you do other things. And then you'll miss the joy of essence.
Yeah. So they get distracted. We use that word coaching when we're distracted. And I see that in myself.
So easy to get distracted. So easy to go in a downward spiral after the distraction and then lose touch with, I was being so different before. And I get love.
As you know, so we completely support you.
Yeah. Whatever we can do to support you, we are here. I'm available to support you. I'm available if you anything. I'm here to support you for that. As my service to Krishna to support everyone.
I wanted to just announce that to you two as holding yourself accountable.
But you don't know. Yeah. And if you want to create any structure with us,
Okay,
you're welcome to do that.
okay, cool, yeah,
One week at a time, 1 month at a time.
okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I was thinking something monthly. I know you're not doing coaching anymore.
I'm not doing coaching, but what I do, I make myself available for people, super spiritual support.
Okay,
So I do that.
okay. Cool, thank you.
I'm happy to be here, meet with you, to get time, read together, or whatever is needed for you to, steadily continue, or when you're attacked by guilt and shame, somehow.
Yeah,
I'm here to help you with guilt and shame. I'm not that spiritual, or conditioning for spiritual anyway.
yeah. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's what I'm called to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, I feel very blessed.
Yeah, reach out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
sharing your insight. And continue to chant Hare Krishna with your gratitude.
Thank you.
I will. Yeah. Harmony was not maybe.
You want to come into Arya Vaishnavism, 1300?
I don't know when we get to go the Vaishnavism, but yeah, 1800 is when he left France. And he was a sitting instrument, with a pedal.
So sit down.
And of course you will sit down, like a piano, but it was a wind instrument. And then it was a string instrument. And then from France we went to England. I do not like that, I don't know. When.
You know, like more salad? There's a new twist in the salad.
Yeah, it's sesame, it says roasted sesame oil in the salad.
Sprinkle here, some things, yeah.
Very good.
Would you like more?
I like it very much, and it's good for the winter because sesame oil is warming.
Yeah.
The salad is pretty.
There's dolls and some other things, it's like a little mixture. More rice?
I took them out before I started, so clean, but then put them in the bowl.
I also have a lot more.
Understand what I said?
Yes. They're clean, you didn't touch them, you just extracted them like a serving.
Before I started to eat.
So they can go back into some salad or go to stick. So I have a lot more corn and it's from the local farmers market, so. Would you guys like to talk to them a little? Maybe I'll bring them.
I just have a nose of the system.
Okay.
So then, the English, we were out by India,
Yeah.
they bought it there, I was there, to play their music, whatever, they were playing, maybe in, I don't know. And then in India, people live on slow, so they made their own version of it. Like that to sit on slow. And so that's when you arrive in India, when did you pick up from Vaishnavism? I haven't done research.
Yeah. Take that one.
I'll just research. It was interesting what you put, fennel.
And the rice.
Not in the corn smell like.
I did, but that's a great idea.
It's funny because it tastes like fennel.
You sure it's not the rice? Maybe the sit by rice?
Yeah, maybe.
Amazing, but it is. Oh,
I know, yeah. I'm not discussing that, but like that, so. But when people say it's a traditional Vaishnava instrument, no, it's not. Nobody is fair, or even associated with. There, I'm not sure about that.
Here's a little that rice was found on that Paul's kitchen. And this one more, 2 minutes.
I'm not sure about that. when Prabhupada started, because in India we go young. Non, we viens d'une seule de la Mudanga, Mudanga is complete Vaishnava instrument.
We hear the story of the first Mudanga coming to San Francisco. How the first Mudanga got to
Well, I know when you look at that video, what's his name? Not Timothy, the other one. He had a little shoot box.
Right.
So maybe that's how. Maybe one who picked up on my question of Black Black. And Prabhupada's name, Amalan, is so that. To me, it seems like in a volume music. It's like divinely inspired. I don't know anybody else would play like that. I have Bagari once. Bagari just was able to play like exactly like Bagari.
He could do it.
I don't want people to worry about like, oh, someone like what Stephanie said. You know, shouldn't pay you because you should be able to and yeah, we are trying to do it. If Prabhupada ever pay out in India.
Interesting question.
We haven't heard anything. I haven't heard.
I do know that.
Mm-hmm.
I think know the answer to that.
Part of me, I tell you my speculation, I'm not sharing my speculation very much.
Okay.
But I was sharing, I did not share. Part of me feel like probably nowhere here before Prabhupada arrived. And when Prabhupada saw that they are going to become popular. And Prabhupada said, I'm going to stay. And because all talents, everything delivered in these stories, preaching is given to you, to the Lord. Then you just start to pay. That's right.
Historical exploration.
I know when Prabhupada was in London, it had
In 1960,
it was only like time frames at that.
Yeah.
I
New York or San Francisco.
because London is not connected with India. That's San Francisco weird. Maybe family was there. Yeah, no. Yeah, Ocean Shaka. Hmm? Yeah. No, but isn't it that there's something I heard about Prabhupada maybe it was Spanish or South American. What else was you saying? So you would say same about that. Oh, you must have learned Spanish when you was in India.
Doesn't need to follow my rational, live your rationality. That's a fact. For sure.
You know, obviously when you were to Germany, at least it was part of the Spanish. That's funny. He was really reading them.
Well, that's what's in the book. According to the devotee observed. Yeah, according to the way it was described, it's in, I think, the set of extra volume of the other set. I think it was in the South American countries. Yeah, he was really reading. That's the way it was described. Whatever way it was yeah. Capable.
Mystic power. Like something of violence and Vina, complex, all that are tradition.
Traditional way.
This is almost Dr. Tanya, Korea Vaishnava.
There are movie places. Descriptions here.
I can imagine that harmonium coming in place back to the Otaku time.
With the British.
No. But the Makama, I went first from him once on Facebook. And you know, we have always like
The traditional.
the most advanced traditional Vedic Krana, whatever, all that.
Yeah.
And Korea Vaishnava. And I was saying, if you sing as an harmonium, you will sing like an harmonium.
If you are.
If you sing with an harmonium, you will sing like an harmonium. And in fact, the harmonium in India, they have half notes.
Yeah.
They have more notes than this one. Word by side. But Prabhupada, the way the harmonium is not at all getting in the way of his voice. It's like almost you have to, you know, it's so amazing. But I don't know if everybody experiences it like that, but I experience it as out of this world. It's dominant every time. Do you experience it like that? Where did you go?
I am actually.
I'm sure there is a desert, but I'm not going to have it, so I don't want it to go. Good to go. And can make a picture.
Oh, thank you.
You don't think you got dessert, and so a little bird came and said, make sure you get the whole plate, it's yours to take with you. Thank you for an awesome lesson, it was so inspiring, and I love the way, I love talking about the group. I reread, because I didn't know we were having that many people, I was thinking 6 to 8.
Yeah, I like this container.
Well, I had a smaller container, and then when I kept getting people saying I'm coming, so I enlarged it, but I kind of blocked it so they couldn't get in and out, so, and I told a few people, how about we respect the whole program? I just feel so much better.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to continue on figuring out how to do that. I do too, it was beautiful. Anything else? You
It's
can-
good. I got your letter, I'll respond
Okay,
to
that
it.
was okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, I remember you from on campus. Like last 3 years.
Okay, yeah.
What's your name?
I'm Jim.
Jim, Mika.
Nico, nice to meet you. Okay, yeah, great. Yeah. Did you go to the Christian house?
I mean, I've been around there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I never left straight there.
What was it? What month was it? Was it,
I think it's fall. Not like a year ago. Just not.
okay.
On campus, like you came a few times on Thursdays, I think.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's different.
My
Did you grow your hair out?
Yeah, my hair
That's
grew out.
good.
Yeah, I had a short.
Okay. Cool.
Good to see you.
You too. Yeah. What is it? Nico?
Nico, yeah.
Nico, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
We're not still on here, are we?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Nobody's watching, but it could be.